Hello, you are on the Epic Life Stories channel. Today we will listen to a new exciting story. Subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Part 1, Secret Birth. Chapter 1, Mysterious Birth. Anna and Mikhail, living in a small suburb, waited a long time for the birth of their first children. The birth was easy, but the parents' joy was soon overshadowed. Twins, Daniel and Artyom, were born with dark skin, although they were white. The birth came as a complete surprise to the couple and was the subject of discussion among neighbors and relatives. Chapter 2, Legends and Curses. Soon after the children were born, rumors about what happened to Anna and Mikhail spread throughout the area. Neighbors began to talk about how the children could be part of some ancient curse. They told creepy stories about how children with unusual appearances could be connected to ancient mystical forces. Anna and Mikhail could not ignore these conversations, and their fears only intensified. Mikhail, losing faith in the reality of what was happening, began to believe that this could be the result of some mysterious force or intervention. Chapter 3, Secrets of the Past. Several months passed, and Anna and Mikhail's lives continued to become increasingly stressful. Strange events became part of their daily routine. Anna noticed that children, despite their young age, show amazing abilities. They could intuitively sense the emotions of those around them and sometimes seemed able to predict events. Chapter 4, The Sad Truth. Mikhail, increasingly immersed in the search for answers, began to research the history of his family and Anna's family tree. He discovered that his ancestors were involved in occult practices and ancient rituals. It turned out that many of these rituals were associated with the control and direction of mystical forces. Mysterious records indicated that in ancient times there was a cult that used children with special characteristics to perform complex magical tasks. These children were believed to be connected to otherworldly forces and may have abilities that surpass ordinary understanding. Part 2, Dark Forces Awaken. Chapter 5, Signs of Strength. Over time, Daniel and Artyom's abilities became more and more pronounced. They began to exhibit strange abilities. Their views could cause inexplicable changes in the world around them. This caused fear and bewilderment in Anna and Mikhail. One night Daniel and Artyom began speaking in an incomprehensible language and reporting strange visions. Anna noticed that they could control objects with their thoughts, which clearly went beyond normal human capabilities. These events became a cause for concern, and she turned to paranormal experts for help. Chapter 6, Suspicious Guests. After turning to specialists, Anna and Mikhail encountered several mysterious individuals who claimed that they could help them understand what was happening. These people, dressed in dark clothes, called themselves researchers of ancient knowledge and promised to reveal secrets related to children. One of these visitors, a mysterious man named Luke, began to conduct his own research and soon reported that the children were under the influence of powerful dark forces. Luke claimed that these powers could be used to fulfill ancient prophecies and rituals, and that Daniel and Artyom could become key figures in this process. Chapter 7, Secret Society. Luke told Anna and Michael about the existence of an ancient society that believed in using special children for their rituals. This society believed that children with special abilities could become guides between worlds and help achieve their goals. As Luke delved deeper into his research, he discovered that Anna and Mikhail had become objects of interest to this society. Legends said that every time such children appear, society tries to use them for its own purposes. Now both Daniel and Artyom have become the target of this hidden order. Chapter 8, Unusual Abilities. The children continued to demonstrate their unusual abilities. They could affect the environment, create strange energy fields, and even influence the emotional state of people around them. Their abilities began to attract the attention of not only researchers, but also people with dark intentions. Anna and Mikhail faced a threat from secret agents who were trying to capture the children and use their powers to their advantage. These agents used various methods to enter their home and create an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Part 3, Revealing the Prophecy. Chapter 9, Prophecy. Luke, continuing his investigation, discovered an ancient prophecy that concerned children born with special abilities. The prophecy said that these children could either become great protectors or destroy the world if their powers were misused. The prophecy also stated that only through the performance of certain rituals and sacrifices could their abilities be controlled or channeled. Luke warned Anna and Mikhail that their task was not only to protect the children, but also to find a way to properly channel their powers to prevent disaster. Chapter 10, Dangerous Allies. While searching for a way to protect their children, Anna and Mikhail encountered various allies who could offer help. However, many of them had their own ulterior motives. One of these allies was an esotericist named Sophia. who promised to help control the abilities of children. However, her true intentions were not entirely clear. Anna and Mikhail began to doubt who they could trust. They realized that not everyone who offers to help actually wants to help them. Some of them were interested in using children for their own purposes. Chapter 11: Chase and Escape. The dark forces that were pursuing the children became even more aggressive. Anna and Mikhail began to feel threatened in every detail of their lives. The aggression on the part of the dark agents intensified, and they began to actively look for ways to enter the house and capture the children. One night, Anna and Mikhail's house was attacked by a group of agents. They had managed to evade capture, but now knew they had to act decisively to protect their children. They organized an escape and began to look for a safe place where they could hide and continue their search. Part 4: Finding Salvation. Chapter 12: Lost Knowledge. Anna and Mikhail, avoiding their pursuers, found an ancient shelter that belonged to one of Mikhail's ancestors. In this place they discovered ancient books and records that could contain answers to their questions. After studying the records, they learned that Michael's ancestors were part of an ancient order that studied and controlled mystical forces. These notes contained information on how to use the children's abilities to prevent disaster. Chapter 13: The Last Rite. Having found the necessary information, Anna and Mikhail decided to perform the last ritual to try to control the children's abilities and prevent them from being used by dark forces. They used ancient spells and artifacts found in the shelter to create a protective field and channel the children's powers into defense. The ritual was complex and required great concentration. Anna and Mikhail, full of determination, carried out all the necessary steps, despite fear and fatigue. The children, being at the center of the ritual, began to show their strength and their abilities became more controlled. Chapter 14: Confrontation. When the ritual came to an end, they felt that the dark forces were beginning to retreat. However, they knew that their enemies would not leave them alone. The latest attempts by dark agents to capture children have become more desperate. Anna and Mikhail decided to fight the last battle to protect their children and free themselves from the influence of dark forces. They faced aggression and threats, but with the help of their new knowledge and the children's abilities they were able to win. Chapter 15: New World. After the successful completion of the ritual and victory over the dark forces, Anna and Mikhail returned to a quiet life, but that was not the case. Part 5: New Threats and Dark Secrets. Chapter 16: A New Beginning. After the final battle with the dark forces and victory, Anna and Mikhail returned to their lives, trying to restore calm and normality. Their children, Daniel and Artyom, became calmer and more confident, and abilities that were previously scary began to be used to help others. However, in their new life, not everything was as calm as it seemed. Anna noticed that strange events continued to occur despite their efforts. The dark forces, although weakened, left behind shadows that could not be easily eliminated. Chapter 17: Secret Traces. Anna and Mikhail began to receive strange messages left in the form of mysterious symbols and codes. Letters and notes found in their home contained references to ancient prophecies and references to the existence of a secret society that continued to be interested in their children. Luke, the mysterious explorer, has reappeared in their lives. He revealed that his own research had shown that the dark forces they encountered were only part of a more complex plan involving ancient forces and mystical rituals. Chapter 18: Opening the Archives. Luke invited Anna and Mikhail to explore secret archives that were accessible only to members of the ancient order. These archives contained information about ancient rituals and mystical forces that could explain the current state of their children and the remaining threats. In the archives they found records of an ancient artifact that had enormous power and could change the balance of power. The artifact was hidden somewhere in an ancient temple, which, according to legend, was guarded by magical creatures. Chapter 19: Finding the Temple. The archives indicated the location of the temple, which was located in a remote area of the mountains. Anna and Mikhail, together with Luka, set off on this dangerous journey to find the artifact. The path was full of obstacles. They encountered traps, ancient spells and magical creatures guarding the temple. Inside the temple, they discovered many riddles and puzzles that needed to be solved in order to move forward. These tests tested their knowledge, intuition and determination. Each decision brought them closer to the artifact, but also attracted the attention of other, less friendly creatures. Chapter 20: Dark Forces Return. As they approached the artifact, Anna and Mikhail began to feel that the dark forces were beginning to intensify again. Their children's abilities began to manifest again, but in a more destructive form. Daniel and Artyom began to see visions and hear voices that seemed to be directed against them. Luke explained that the return of dark forces is associated with the activation of the artifact. He stated that their task now is not only to find the artifact, but also to ensure that it does not fall into the hands of those who could use it for evil purposes. Chapter 21, False Allies. During their journey through the temple, Anna and Mikhail encountered other seekers of the artifact who were also interested in its power. These seekers presented themselves as allies willing to help, but it soon became clear that their intentions were far from honest. It turned out that they were part of a secret society that planned to use the artifact for their own purposes. These allies began to act against Anna and Mikhail, and they had to face new threats and dangers in order to protect their goals and children. Chapter 22, Key Finding. In the depths of the temple, in the very heart, Anna and Mikhail found an artifact. It was an ancient crystal that emitted an unusual glow and was reminiscent of ancient powers. The crystal was surrounded by a powerful magical barrier that they had to overcome. When they activated the crystal, its power began to overwhelm them. Daniel and Artyom felt their abilities begin to change and intensify. The artifact could change their fate, and Anna and Mikhail knew they had to act quickly to prevent its misuse. Chapter 23, Final Battle. The secret society and its supporters began to attack the temple in order to seize the artifact and use it for their own purposes. Anna, Mikhail and Luka face a final battle to protect the crystal and prevent disaster. The battle was intense and Anna and Mikhail had to use all their strength and knowledge to win. They used the abilities of their children and a magical artifact to create a protective field and repel enemy attacks. Chapter 24, The Prophecy Unraveled. After a successful battle, Anna and Mikhail were able to protect the artifact and unravel the prophecy. They learned that their children were the key to using the artifact to protect and restore balance. The prophecy indicated that only with the help of pure intentions and faith could the power of the artifact be used for good. Chapter 25, The Way Forward. Anna and Mikhail returned home with new understanding and determination. They decided to use the power of the artifact to protect and help others who were faced with dark forces. Daniel and Artyom continued to develop their abilities, and their lives began to regain stability. Luke remained their friend and ally, helping them further their study of mystical powers and their uses. They began working to create a new path for those facing dark forces, and continued to protect the world from possible threats. Epilogue, Legacy of Light and Darkness. The lives of Anna and Mikhail became an important part of the history of the fight against dark forces. Their children, Daniel and Artyom, became symbols of hope and strength, and their abilities were used to protect and help. There were still secrets and mysteries in their lives, but they learned to deal with them and use their knowledge for good. The secret society they encountered left a mark, but their intentions were understood and used to create a new path. Ultimately, the story of Anna and Mikhail became a lesson about how to cope with dark forces and find light even in the darkest corners of the world. Part 6, Battle for the Future. Chapter 26, Recognition and Restoration. After Anna and Mikhail returned home with the artifact and neutralized the threat, their lives gradually began to return to normal. The children, Daniel and Artyom, finally began to sleep peacefully at night, and their abilities began to be used to help others without causing unnecessary fear. But even in a world free from direct threats, the events experienced left their mark. Anna and Mikhail, realizing that their lives would never be the same, began working to restore relationships with society and their own families. They had to face prejudice and mistrust from people who did not believe their story or considered their children strange and dangerous. Chapter 27, Psychological Pressure. For Anna and Mikhail, the most difficult test was psychological pressure. Each of them tried to cope with post-traumatic stress in their own way. Mikhail began visiting a psychologist to work through his fears and experiences associated with dark forces and their attempts to take over children. Anna, in turn, found solace in keeping a diary and communicating with close friends who remained faithful to her during difficult times. Her therapist recommended doing yoga and meditation to cope with anxiety and fears. Chapter 28, Secret Agents. After the situation calmed down a bit, Anna and Mikhail faced new threats. The news that they were in possession of a magical artifact had spread, and they were now being followed by various agencies and organizations interested in their abilities and capabilities. One day, they received a visit from a group of private detectives working for the government, who expressed interest in their experience and knowledge of magical powers. These agents offered cooperation in exchange for protection and assistance in further research. Anna and Mikhail, approaching the proposal cautiously, agreed to cooperate, but only under the condition of full transparency and the ability to control the actions of the detectives. They understood that the safety of their family remained a priority. Chapter 29, Detecting Enemies. Cooperation with private detectives gave Anna and Mikhail important information. They learned of the existence of underground groups who continued to be interested in their children and the artifact. These groups were associated with various movements that believed in ancient prophecies and magical powers. One of the detectives, Alexei, proved particularly helpful. He was well aware of the activities of such groups and provided Anna and Mikhail with information on how they could protect themselves and their children from possible threats. Alexei also suggested creating secret channels of communication with other researchers and defenders in order to be aware of any new threats. Chapter 30, The Path to Recovery. Gradually, Anna and Mikhail began to rebuild their lives. They opened a center to help families experiencing mystical and paranormal phenomena. This center became a place where people could receive support and advice on protecting themselves from dark forces and managing special abilities. Together with detectives and other allies, Anna and Mikhail continued their research and worked to protect the world from threats. They developed training programs for those experiencing paranormal phenomena and helped create networks of support and protection. Chapter 31, Revealing Secrets. In the course of their work, Anna and Mikhail discovered many new facts about dark forces and mystical rituals. They discovered that many of the ancient prophecies and rituals were based on real events and forces, but over time they were distorted and used for manipulation. They began publishing their research and sharing their knowledge with a wider audience, hoping to dispel myths and fears. Anna and Mikhail understood that only through knowledge and understanding can they fight dark forces and prevent their impact on people. Chapter 32, Conclusion. Despite all the trials and difficulties, Anna and Mikhail were able to create a new life for their family. Daniel and Artyom grew up to be confident and happy children, and their abilities began to be used to help others, allowing them to become a source of inspiration and hope for many. Anna and Michael's lives were proof that even in the darkest times, light and hope can be found. They learned to manage their fears and use their knowledge to help others. Their story continued, but now they knew that every day was a step towards new discoveries and challenges, and they were ready to meet them with courage and determination. Part 7, The Storm Hits. Chapter 33, The Calm Before the Storm. Anna and Mikhail continued their work at the center, helping families experiencing paranormal phenomena. Their children, Daniel and Artyom, grew up confident and skillful, their abilities becoming more and more significant. However, despite the apparent calm, the dark forces did not disappear completely. One day, a new group of several strangers approached Anna and Mikhail. They introduced themselves as researchers searching for a way to neutralize ancient curses and magical powers, but their true intentions were not so clear. It soon became clear that behind their actions there was a dark force seeking to use the children's abilities for their own purposes. Chapter 34, Dark Intentions. These strangers began to actively pursue Daniel and Artyom, trying to capture them and use their abilities for their own dark purposes. Anna and Mikhail soon learned that these people were associated with cults that believed in ancient prophecies, according to which children with special abilities would become victims of ancient rituals in order to achieve their goals. Anna and Mikhail realized that they must act quickly to protect their children. They began to search for information about cults and their rituals in order to find a way to protect Daniel and Artyom from possible danger. Chapter 35, Consequences of Intervention. Despite all the efforts of Anna and Mikhail, the dark forces continued to increase their activity. Upon learning of the children's whereabouts, the cults began to attack the center where they spent their time. The battle was brutal, and Anna and Mikhail fought tooth and nail to protect their family and keep the center's other clients safe. At this critical moment, Daniel and Artyom, who demonstrated their abilities, found themselves in the center of events. Their power attracted the attention of the cultists, and they soon found themselves in danger that could not be ignored. Chapter 36, The Ritual Complete. The Dark Cults, learning that the culmination of their plans were approaching, decided to carry out the final ritual in order to gain complete control over the children's abilities. They prepared everything necessary for the ritual, which was to end on the night of the full moon. Anna and Mikhail, realizing that their children could become victims, tried to prevent this, but time worked against them. At the last moment, when the cultists were close to completing the ritual, Daniel and Artyom showed their strength and began to fight against the dark forces. Chapter 37, The Final Victim. Despite their efforts, Anna and Mikhail were unable to prevent the ritual from being completed completely. Cultists used ancient spells to influence children and draw power from them. During the ritual, Daniel and Artyom found themselves in a state where their abilities were directed in a negative direction. Trying to free their children and stop the ritual, Anna and Mikhail made one last desperate attempt. As a result, the ritual was partially completed, and the children were partially freed from its effects, but not without consequences. Dark forces left a mark on them that took a long time and effort to heal. Chapter 38, Starting Over. After the incident, although the dark forces were weakened, the consequences of the ritual were significant. Daniel and Artyom, despite everything they had experienced, continued to grow, but their powers changed, and they began to suffer from the consequences of the ritual. Anna and Mikhail continued their work at the center, but now their efforts were focused on treating and helping their children, as well as ensuring their protection from new threats. They understood that their history was not only a struggle against dark forces, but also a constant work to restore and preserve peace for their families. Chapter 39, Memory and Hope. Although the children endured many trials, they continued to be a symbol of hope for many. Anna and Mikhail, despite difficulties and tragedies, were able to create a safe space for their family and help others. Their story is a reminder of the importance of maintaining faith and perseverance even in the darkest of times. Over time, although the remaining dark forces tried to re-enter their lives, Anna and Mikhail were able to create a stable environment for their children. Their dedication and love allowed them to overcome a dark legacy and provide hope for a better future. Epilogue, Legacy and Reflection. Anna and Mikhail's story ended, but its legacy lived on in their children and in the center they created. Their struggle for the future and protection from dark forces left an indelible mark. Daniel and Artyom, despite their dark history, became strong and courageous individuals who were able to overcome many challenges. Anna and Mikhail remained dedicated to helping and protecting, passing on their knowledge and experience to new generations. Their story has become a symbol of the struggle against dark forces and the strength of spirit, reminding us that even in the most difficult conditions, light and hope can be found. This is the end of this wonderful story. I hope you liked it, and you were imbued with this atmosphere. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as it promotes my video. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye everyone.